I'm going to talk about Mi'kmaq. Does anybody know what Mi'kmaq is? Mi'kmaq.
Oh, yeah.
Tibet.
Tibet,
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Because there's two games called Mi'kmaq. Mi'kmaq means many eyes. They look at the board as having many eyes. One is Wei Qi, which came from China. The other one is, when I was there in the early 90s, doing a lot of research on Tibetan Go, when you could do that, you can't do it anymore. I heard about this game, and I thought, oh, it's just another country game, because I'd already seen dozens of little pebble games, different rules, and pebble games with grids all over China. And I thought, well, it's just something like that, and I didn't pay any attention. I wish I had, because I got interested in it later on, and unfortunately, I had no, I should have talked about it. I mean, I should have really investigated it then. There's only 3 separate accounts, one by a native, one by an anthropologist, and a dubious one by R.C. Bell, the game expert in board game books, which will not be discussed because I think he's off. I think he didn't get it right. First of all, he had it on a 19 by 19 board, and if you try to play that game on a 19 by 19, you'll see what I mean. It's going to take a long time. There's also been a lot of, on the internet, if you look up Mi'kmaq, you're going to find, and Mi'kmaq, the way it's misspelled, is usually they misspell it Mi'kmaq. There's a lot of Westerners who try to make up rules, and it's all junk. There's a Swiss scholar, Ulrich Schadler, who's basically the only reliable guy that is talking about these games that they talk about on Board Geek Game, whatever that website is. But just remember, Ulrich Schadler, if you see him, he's the real thing. And you'll see in a minute, too. So anyway, this game, first visual. Over here. Okay, it's custodial capture, which means that and that, but not that. Okay? Now, this game, there's none of these, except for Hasimi Shogi, that, in Japan, which is just a war game like chess, clash. There's no custodial capture games that I know of in China. However, in the West, there's a lot of them. And it begins it could begin in Egypt. Okay, there's a game called Sega, which, and then there's a game called Polis. Polis is a Greek game, and Plato said it came from Egypt. Now, what's the name? Polis, P-O-L-E-I-S. Polis, like police, except Polis. It's got some other names too. Sometimes they call it Petya, which just generally means games. It doesn't refer to this. It means cities in Greece. Anyway, Plato said that, oh, it came from Egypt, so people think, well, it might have come from Sega, which is, next one, this game here, where people put stones down in black and white as they want, and they have to leave the center one open. And then they start this custodial capture madness, which can make quite a game out of this little board. The problem is there's absolutely no record of the game being played in ancient Egypt, although they play it now. They've been playing it within recorded history. So this could mean there's another game in Egypt called Senate, which is a royal game, and it's a game involving pieces and dice and this kind of thing. And a lot of times it was played with the dead in tombs. And therefore, you find a lot of Senate, equipment in the tombs. Nothing of Sega, but maybe Sega was a poor man's game, played in the dust, with just pebbles. And so it may be like Liubo and Go in China, because Liubo was this divinatory game, and it had fancy sets, and you find a lot of them in the tombs, but no Go equipment. But then on the Go, on the other hand, is a pile of stones, you know. You're going to get buried with a pile of stones. It's, it's like, you know, maybe not. So the first Go board, I think, comes from the late Han period in a tomb. But that involves with the history of Go, which I'm going to get into tomorrow. I'm going to talk about origins of Go strategies in Chinese grammar, classical Chinese grammar, and I'm going to involve a little bit about my theories about where Go came from in the age of the Confucian writings and stuff like that. Anyway, let's go back. So you get, here's Polis. Now, Athena is watching Achilles and Ajax, dressed as spear-carrying hoplites. They're playing a game of Polis. This means they're doomed to die. It's a dying man's game in this case, anyway. And to the left, it's interesting because there's a pile of stones. Sometimes these types of Polis game things, they're shouting 3 and 4. So nobody knows exactly what this game was about. It probably wasn't a dice game. It was played with stones on a grid, and it was custodial capture. So, next one. So the Roman Empire had also a game like that. And the descriptions of these games, you pick them out, and a lot of times the descriptions are like 200 or 300 years later, after the game had even stopped being played. And so you get this vague kind of feelings about these games. Ludus Lucrum, like this is the only surviving set. People on the internet think it's this Ludus Ludicalorum or Latriculi. However, Ulrich Schadler says no. There's an important piece in it, and he says it's probably an Irish or Welsh game. But you know, you can imagine trying to figure out what kind of game this was, since the board is completely disintegrated. So anyway, the Roman Empire, you know, spread all over the place, and you know, they carried that game with them. You see markings for the game in various places of the grids. See it? White to move. Huh? It's okay. Anyway, this is another, I just put this in because it's kind of interesting. Again, you get the grid and the stones. I don't know if that's the real stones from this game. This photograph was undated somewhere in Britain, but it's still an interesting game. I mean, to look at anyway. Okay, and the Vikings had, and I don't know how to pronounce it, Nefertal, yeah. A 19 by 19 board, and it looks like yeah, there's a couple of Toffel games, sure. So the idea is that there's a king in the center, and those are his defenders, and he's being besieged. And again, it's custodial capture, and he has to reach the side or a corner, which means a couple of things. It means that his defenders have to be sacrificed to clear the way so he can get out there. And it becomes a huge, you know, game. They don't know. Now, the problem with these games is they don't know if you move an intersection at a time or like a rook in chess. And that's a big difference, you know, in terms of how fast the game goes. They do know, for example, that Ulrich Schadler says that the Roman game and the Polis game, there were no setups in the start like chess. You put the stones where you wanted to. And the idea was, to create a mass. In other words, an isolated person was doomed. And so they've worked out a little bit of this. Okay, so, and they do know, they're out and out military battles. But again, there was no set position to start with. Okay, so, anyway, my thesis is that this may have come from Bactria, which was Greece. Alexander the Great conquered this, and it remained Greek for a long, long time. The Silk routes went through it, and the idea, I think, is that custodial capture game would have ended up there. The police game would have been there, and then it moved into Tibet, and the Tibetans did their own arrangement of it. There is a theory by a man named Explain. Oh. Okay, they would have come here and there. Here's Tibet, right here. And there's just, there's passable mountains there. I've been in that area, and it's quite passable. And as I said, this whole area was Greek. So this fellow, a guy named, let's see, Myron J. Sampson, had an idea that the pawns in chess, they're different than any other piece. And his idea was that the pawns came from one game, and it sort of joined into another game that was an Indian dice game. And he pointed out that the capture and custodial go is the same as the move of the pawn. And he theorizes that this was through this Bactrian corridor. So my idea was that it possibly could come that way. And so it's interesting, just east and west. Okay, so this is the way the Tibetan Mingmong starts, like this. And then you move into the center. And that's about where all of the descriptions sort of end their agreement, because the whole question is whether you can take on the side, like this. One says you can't take anything on the side, and the other said, yeah, this is fine. So it's sort of a funny situation. And okay, let's go to the next one. This is what is in a Chinese book of the remains at an end of a game, who is explaining this game. Can we go to the next one, Terry? Okay, so I'll just end it up here. This is the situation from that picture. And the German translator on the German edition wrote checkmate. And so the only way to get checkmate out of this, I figured out, was like this. When white moves here, these pieces here are captured, but these pieces on the side, this is a situation where pieces on the side can't be captured, you see. Now, the result of this is that this is captured, and none of these pieces can move anywhere. They're trapped. And this is an element that runs through the police and the Roman game and Mingmong. It's the idea that you kill pieces. Oh yeah, the other thing, by the way, is I forgot to mention is the Tibetan Mingmong. When you capture custodially, you turn the stone and it becomes your stone. And that's in two of the descriptions. In the third description, at the end of the game, if you only got one piece, that piece needs to be caught with two pieces on each side, and it can hop. And so he has a chance of winning. And Okay, so that's Tibetan Mi'kmaq. I mean, there's not much else to say. And I'm still looking for somebody who's played the game. You know, I've got a lot of Tibetan connections and everything else, and I even took a trip to Seattle to visit some ex-royalty, and you know, nobody had heard of this.
Tibet Mi'kmaq, you said, was played by 19 by 19 board.
What's that?
Yeah, I experienced Tibet Mi'kmaq was played by 17 by 17 board.
You saw Mi'kmaq? No, you mean you're talking about Weiqi Mi'kmaq or?
Mi'kmaq.
Huh?
Tibet Mi'kmaq was played by 17 by 17 board, not the Go.
Do you know if the pieces though would move like rooks?
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And then when you you can capture the stone by
capturing.
by
Really?
sandals.
Okay, because that's what R.C. Bell found. He interviewed some monks. However, all of the book references, it's 9 by 9.
I haven't seen 9 by 9 one.
Oh, okay. If you give me your card, I'll send you the references because there it is. So, okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
So with the custodial capture games, do you think that they started in Bactria or Bactria?
No. That was long after it would have been played in Greece and Rome.
Okay, so they moved from Greece to Tibet by way of Bactria.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. It just is logical. Okay.